So for me, I got caught up with bad company from a very early age, and I ran afoul of the law a lot. I started getting arrested at 13. When I was 15, I got like a year in juvenile hall, and when I was 17, I was looking at 12 and a half to 25 years in prison.
Wow.
So throughout that time, you're talking, carrying firearms, illegal firearms, that is. You're talking robbing people, shooting behind people, people shooting behind me. So, those are some of the encounters of almost losing my life. And then I almost died in prison also.
Welcome to Manstory. A lot of the ills in society are due to youth not having positive role models and getting caught up with individuals who influence them on a negative path. Manstory seeks to highlight men in the Caribbean and beyond who are upstanding citizens. No, these men aren't perfect, but they excel in different aspects of society and can encourage the next generation by sharing their own journey with us. Rory Branford is a powerful Trinidadian business leader and visionary whose entrepreneurial acumen and strong work ethic positioned the Branford Group of companies for rapid, sustainable growth over the past decade. Today, the Branford Group comprises 5 subsidiaries with an expanding footprint across the Caribbean region. At age 24, Rory started his first company by providing truck transportation services. Since then, he has become an unstoppable force in business. He subsequently took the bold step of leading his group full time as managing director and is responsible for overseeing all aspects of operations. As a result, each of his early subsidiaries which achieved outstanding performance results over the past decade with strong revenue growth and high customer retention and acquisition. Rory has always had a strong passion for entrepreneurship and he is committed to meeting the dynamic market demands of the wider Caribbean region. All right, so tell me about yourself. Who is who is Rory Bradford?
My name, as you just said, is Rory Branford. 43 years of age. I am the owner of a general contracting firm called Branford General Contracting Services. I'm a husband. I am a father of three, and I'm a God-fearing young man.
Nice, nice, nice.
Yeah.
So what drives you? What's the driving force?
One of the key drivers for me is just the gratitude that I have each and every day. For me, I've lost a lot of friends on this journey, and I've even almost lost my life on this journey. So every day that I'm here, I'm blessed with the opportunity to leave the earth, leave my loved ones, leave my family, leave my team members better than I met this place, which is, on earth here, So that's one of the key drivers for me, just being able to add value and to make a difference and to impact change in this world that we live in.
You said there are times when you've almost lost your life. Tell us a bit more about that. What happened?
Um, when I was about 10, 11 years old, my parents, they were in pursuit of that American dream and that better life for myself and my siblings. And we migrated to the US at a very young age. And it wasn't like one of those normal migrations where you leave as a family. My parents actually had to send myself and my sister before they actually moved there. And being in the United States, 10, 11 years old without your parents, um, there's a lot of peer pressure. There's a lot of different energies that is out there, and some energies, are not seeking your best interests. So for me, I got caught up with bad company from a very early age, and I ran afoul of the law a lot. I started getting arrested at 13. When I was 15, I got like a year in juvenile hall, and when I was 17, I was looking at 12 and a half to 25 years in prison.
Wow.
So throughout that time, you're talking, carrying firearms, illegal firearms, that is, you're talking robbing people, shooting behind people, people shooting behind me. So, those are some of the encounters of almost losing my life. And then I almost died in prison also, you know. I've been in fights, got broken jaws. I mean, almost got, one of my organs ruptured and different things like that. So, I mean, on numerous occasions, I would have almost lost my life, you know.
So tell us, what was the turning point? What changed your trajectory?
Um, a big part of that change in my trajectory came from approaching 18 years old. It was around the time of my 18th birthday. I'm looking at 12 and a half to 25. I mean, when I did the maths, if I did 12, which was my basic minimum, I would have been home in my 30s. And if I had done 25, I would have been at home in my 40s. And
What was the charge? Sorry, what was the charge that would have brought that amount of time?
robbery and attempt murder. Yeah, robbery in the first degree and an attempt murder.
You were a gangster.
No, I wouldn't say a gangster. I would say, probably just a misdirected juvenile teenager. Um, yeah, just follow bad company. And like I said, being in solitary confinement, I actually had went to the Bing on Rikers Island. I got caught with a razor, and this is the summer of 1996, and I had just gotten out the hospital with some stitches, having gotten into fights. I had a broken jaw right before that, and I got caught with a shank, like I said, and which a razor, and I was sent to solitary confinement for 75 days. And it was, I mean, one of the most trying times that I've ever been through in my life. You're talking 24-hour lockdowns, you're talking roaches, you're talking rats, you're talking cockroaches, you're talking no sunlight in some places, just locked in a cell, hearing people scream out, hearing people yell. I mean, I'm actually a little more wiser now, and I'm seeing where even having to have experienced that as a teenager is illegal under New York state law, actually having juvenile teenagers in solitary confinement for that long. But at that time, I mean, it would have been what was considered normal for breaking any of the prison rules, catching an infraction or anything like that against their rules. And I remember the countdown to that birthday, and I'm just asking myself, if this is what I wanted for my life. I mean, when you're in solitary confinement, I mean, the only person that you could speak to is God. There is no one to talk to. I mean, even if you may yell across to another cell opposite you or something like that, that can result in sometimes more days and more time in solitary confinement. So you're sometimes forced to really just find your higher source of strength or your higher being, or you could end up going mad, you could end up going insane. A lot of people threaten to take their lives and attempt to do so under those circumstances. And in that moment I really reached out to God. I've grown in the church and would always you know see my parents push for me to serve God and to live for God and that kind of stuff. I think in that moment, I decided to, give it a chance and to realize that, hey, it was the only thing that could work for me in this moment. Your family can work for you, your friends can work for you. So, you know, I ended up, just reaching out to God and, just ended up um, saying that no matter where I go in life or whatever the future hold, I'm always gonna be mindful of the fact that there is a greater purpose and there is a higher calling for my life. When I look back at even in that moment, all the things that I went through and all the things I experienced, I started to question life like, why am I here? What's my purpose? And what is life for me? Looking at those numbers of years in my life, I'm looking at damn near the same amount of years that I would have lived on this earth. So I'm also saying to myself that when would this be over? And, would I ever even see the end of this? So, it's like I had no choice but to depend on that higher source and that higher power in my life, which is God, you know?
So how did that turn out? What happened in terms of the case, and how did you come out, and how did you change, how what was changing, or what did change look like in terms of, well, that first question, let's work with that first question. How did it pan out being on Rikers Island? Because I do know, I've watched a few videos, and I've heard it's one of the worst institutions. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the largest penal colony in the world, and you're talking 19 prisons on one island. It's probably one of the most craziest experiences I've ever encountered in my life. But for me, and my personal journey, it's one where, like I said, in that moment, I had to make a decision where if this is the life that I wanted, I mean, for me, summer 1996, I mean, I went through like a triple threat. I mean, I got my jaw broken. I ended up in the hospital, being injured and almost losing my life. And excuse, excuse. Yeah, so during that phase, I had one of the correctional officers who was in me when I was raced into surgery. She told me like she was there and she was praying because like I went under and they kind of had to shock me for me to get back to life. So
right.
I actually almost died in Rikers. And then being in a position to now defend myself by getting a razor, because I mean I'm coming back to prison. I'm not fully healed. I'm not stitched up. Every day is a fight. Every day is, an assault on your life if you can't defend yourself. I actually ended up getting caught with that razor and ended up being sent to the hole or the bing or, solitary confinement, whatever title you call it. And like for me, that was like the perfect storm in my life. It just felt like everything went wrong. And like I said, it brought me to that place where if there was a moment in my life where I could have given up, it would have been in that moment. And lo and behold, I was able to find peace and solitude in that 75 days, understanding that there is a higher power, there is a higher calling there is something greater than this moment. There's a peace that can be found in humility or in submission just to that higher power and that higher calling on your life. So the change started in that moment, changing, turning 18. Um, about 6 months later, I ended up getting 9 years sentenced to prison. And I decided, I think on that day, I mean, sometimes we're not really clear on that exact moment when change take place,
Mhm.
but I know that it would have been in that season in the general sense. And I decided to make the most out of that 9 years. And I made the decision that I would go into this 9 years making it whatever I wanted to be, right? And I wanted to make the most out of it. So I would use an example of college. Now, I'm not going to say that I ever stood in prison and took it as college. A lot of people have done that. They've told their kids they're away to college and different things like that. I've never done that. But I have embraced the moment knowing that I can make this moment what I want it to be. If I want to make it a living hell, it's going to be a living hell. If I want to make it a time to meet friends and to hang out with the guys, it's going to be that moment. For me, I chose to make it a moment of transformation, and I chose to determine to myself that how how or whatever the future holds, I'm going to leave this moment better than I came into this moment. And it's something that I still do today. I mean, I've read more books during the pandemic than outside of it because I was aware that I didn't want it to be where I watched every Netflix series or I listened to music on YouTube all day. I took that time to commit to reading 2, 3 hours every day during this pandemic. So like during the lockdowns, I was just reading different titles, reading about slavery, reading about business, reading about, personal development. So, I mean, I still see the effects and the benefits of some of those decisions that I made back then, just knowing no matter what the situation is in your life, you have the power, you have the choice to make the most out of it.
Nice, nice. So what happened after the 9 years? I mean, there is a big jump between a young man at Rikers to who you are now. So what happened after the 9 years?
Well, it's so funny that you asked that. Today, Thursday, the 6th of January, I mean, I actually celebrate 20 years of freedom today. I came out of prison. I went in at 17. I did 6.5 years. I came out at 23. And
Congrats on the 20 years.
yeah, man, today specifically, I mean, I would have stepped foot back into Trinidad and Tobago, Piaco International Airport, having, been deported from the United States. Um, my brother, when I look back at the past 20 years, I would just start from that first feeling in that moment 20 years ago. I mean, for me, I'm confused, I'm lost. I mean, I left here at about 10, 11 years old, and I actually lived in the US longer than I live here. I had no siblings here. Um, my immediate family were in the US, and um, I just had to regroup. I mean, there is no ID cards, there's no passport. So whether you're getting Western Union or MoneyGram, somebody has to get. Yeah, so whether it's Western Union or MoneyGram, someone has to get it for you. And you just you're just lost. There's no sense of direction. There's no understanding of how things are done. I mean, in the Caribbean here, we operate based on a model of not just who you know, but who knows you.
True, true.
And it was only that faith and that confidence that was built during that period of time in prison that could have helped me because I always knew that where I'm at is not a definition of who I can become or who I want to be. And I left prison with a 5 year plan, a 10-year plan, one that I used to read each and every day while I was in prison. And, I came out and just saw those same things that I saw for myself just kind of manifest in my life. Coming out of prison, one of the first jobs I got was at a bank, and I mean, that's far-fetched coming out of prison as a deportee. I mean, and having gone to prison for robbery, I, the first job I had was at a bank. And then after that, the second job I had was at another bank. And I went on to work there up until I was 30 for about 5 years. And I always knew at the age of 30 that I wouldn't work again. I would want to pursue my dreams as an entrepreneur because I always knew that I wanted to own my business, my own
Yeah.
business, and I wanted to be in business. And I gave myself till I was 30. And I worked and I worked and I worked and I just kept, believing that this was a stepping stone. So, I always tell people, where you're at now is no clear indication of where you're going to go or who you will become. But you got to be the best in that moment, and you got to be the best in that phase in your life. Because being the best in that phase in your life and being the best in that moment is what's going to prepare you for what's to come. So I worked my butt off, and when the opportunity came to be the head of my business, I was prepared to work hard and to do whatever it took to build my business and to build my brand. I mean, my business started out of the living room in my house, and I used to use my vehicle also as part of my office to do all that I got to do. And I mean, I stand right now, in a company, that is responsible for a group of companies. I mean, we hire about 100 plus workers and
Wow.
employees. And, you know, I saw that, even many years before it actually materialized. But I know that I had to work and I had to be disciplined enough to do everything that I had to do and to work hard and to go above and beyond to make that dream become a reality. But the last 20 years wasn't easy. There's no blueprint that I could give to anyone. There's nothing that I could say that becomes like a magic formula to how you can go through that process. Um, what I would sum it up to say is definitely um, that divine plan for my life, having that trust and that faith in God. And then, second, just being in a position where I wasn't willing to compromise. I wasn't willing to make any excuses. I just determined that I had to do whatever I had to do. There were people rooting for me, there were people counting on me, there were people praying for me, and I just had to do whatever I had to do to deliver on that expectation.
So you mentioned that you had a plan, a 10-year plan while you were in prison. In you focusing in prison and becoming and developing certain skills or life skills, how did that affect those around you? Did they notice a change? Did you clash because you weren't, because you started a different path?
Yes,